we discuss all things agile software development and delivery.
In our Too Long Didn't Read series, we provide short, practical advice on how to get stuff done. So don't expect deep discussions, but step-by-step, hands-on DIY advice that will make your life easier. Most software delivery teams today use a story backlog to manage delivery. A story backlog is effectively a list of things to deliver, but often the backlog is at best a mess, at worst confusing and misleading. A good backlog provides structure and facilitates delivery. A bad one adds confusion and inefficiencies. In this episode, we share our thoughts and experiences on how to create a valuable and high-quality story backlog. The key is this: use the backlog in the right way. Only use it to drive delivery. Don't use it for strategic purposes. The reason is this: a backlog is effectively a ranked list. This makes it good to manage work, but makes it bad when the bigger picture or wider context is required. For such strategic purposes, we have better tools at our disposal, such as roadmaps, experience and story maps, or requirements hierarchies. These are much better tools to use when we have to make strategic, value proposition or capability level decisions. Once you've understood what your backlog is used for, fix your backlog. Keep it small and apply lean principles. What this means is that you reduce noise and you reduce waste by only focusing on the things that are relevant now and in the near future. Do not flood your backlog with items that you may or may not work in the future. If your backlog is massively big, has many stories detailed at lowest level that you may or may not play in the far future, then you need to get rid of those. You need to reduce noise. You can use your roadmaps and your story maps for such future planning and top-level scoping. Only add quality items to your backlog. Make sure that all the stories and epics you add to your backlog are focused on value, user centricity, they're evenly sized and defined at the right level. You may want to allow for a dumping ground, some isolated area, not a part of your backlog, where stakeholders can add items or park items that they may want to discuss in the future. What you then want is a structured process on how these items get reviewed and added to the backlog proper. Keep your backlog well structured. Keep in mind that your backlog is a ranked list, which is great for delivery, but the underlying requirement structure is a structure that decomposes a value proposition into themes, features, epics, and stories. You cannot lose this structure, otherwise you have lost the relationship between the individual items teams deliver and the overall product or value proposition. This would bring the risk of losing sight of the actual goal to work towards. So maintain a feature-function-oriented structure of your backlog under the hood. Do not allow grouping of stories into epics purely for delivery purposes. That is, an epic along the lines of all the stories to be delivered next week has no place in a well-managed backlog. Make your backlog understandable. Any stakeholder should be able to make sense of your backlog without much context or explanation. Clean up your backlog and most importantly, keep it clean. Frequently review your backlog, add new items in a controlled way, ensure their quality, remove items no longer needed, adjust priorities. What you want is clear ownership of the backlog and clear processes of how the backlog is managed and maintained. Warning signs for a bad backlog are backlog reviews that take hours or days, backlogs that contain thousands of prospective items, backlogs that contain many items detailed at great depth that may or may not be played in the future. Items in the backlog that cannot simply be understood by reading them. Items in the backlog that are grouped by non-functional categories. So as I said earlier, grouping a number of stories by when they should be delivered or by whom they should be delivered rather than by the functionality of the feature they belong to. Items being added to the backlog by any stakeholder without controlled process or triaging. Maintaining a quality backlog is quite simple, however, it requires discipline by all involved. As usual, I hope this was helpful. Have a look at the show notes and of course our blog posts for more information on backlog quality and other related topics.
That's it for today's episode. Have a look at our show notes with related information and details on how to get in touch at theburnup.com. We are listener driven, so please do send us your questions, comments, and ideas for new episodes.
We're both practitioners and are happy to discuss interesting opportunities from consulting to coaching to getting involved in actual projects. For inquiries, please visit burnupmedia.com. This podcast is produced by Burnup Media Limited under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 license, which means you can share it as long as you give credit, but you cannot change it or make money of it.
Until next time, thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.